Hi everyone, and welcome to blog 28 of Tackle the Feelings Before the Behaviour. And this blog is on child sexual abuse. And it's the second blog. The first blog, blog 27, is looking at the impact and risk of child sexual abuse, which I urge you to watch. This blog is going to be the signs and symptoms and how to recognize them. So there are a lot, and everybody's different. And so I'm going to give you some of the most prominent ones. And when I work with child abuse, these are the things I would be looking out for making assessments. And now, if your child meets some of these assessments, it does not necessarily mean they are being sexually abused. But as you go along, if there are quite a few of these, even if it's not sexual abuse, it's probably cause for concern. So I would encourage you to get some help, some support, maybe chat to your pediatrician or a counselor or a professional or family support worker, somebody. Look it up. Don't just leave things hanging. But when there's child sexual abuse, there are some very specific things that are triggers, red flag areas, we call them red flags, to alert us. And so younger children and adolescents are different, but there are some real commonalities. And depending on the child's personality, there's going to be some differences. But one thing you'll really notice is a lessening of that self-esteem. Perhaps looking at their body as ugly, or they feel dirty, or they're ashamed of themselves, they feel bad about who they are. There's a lot of shame there. So that's something to really look at, and that's not a symptom to ignore no matter what the cause. Another one is some sleep disturbances. So nightmares, bad dreams, maybe there's bedwetting or something like that. So the child is really frightened at nighttime. You could have mood swings, so your child suddenly becoming really enraged or really withdrawn, not talking anymore, especially if this is unusual for your child. A lot of fear, insecurity, clinginess, don't want to be alone or away from you, or something different in their moods, up and down moods. A lot of the time it comes out in the form of anger and acting out. So be mindful of that. Another one is change in eating habits, usually decreased appetite. And sometimes you'll notice they'll battle to swallow food. So a real problem, and that is linked to that disgust and the actual physical act of whatever they've been forced to do. So you want to pay attention to decreased appetite, weight loss, really not wanting to eat, refusing to eat point blank. Sometimes we see eating disorders develop, and that links in with that body image issues. Again, doesn't necessarily mean sexual abuse, but it can be a symptom. You can have the child or the adolescent becoming really distracted or distant at times, which, especially if this is unusual, if they're very imaginative and prone to daydreaming, that's okay. But especially if this is unusual or they're battling to focus, it's always good to investigate these things anyway. So something that is really an alerting thing for me as a professional in this area, when you see, we call it sexualized behavior or sexual acts, or the child starting to draw things, play in certain ways. Certain amount of sexual play is very explorative and normal and curious, but when you start getting it in things that they couldn't possibly know, especially in younger children, if they start using strange words like nude and things, and different words for their genitals and private parts that you've never heard them say before, that you don't use with them, and they've suddenly learned these strange words for private parts, or these different questions, maybe they start prompting discussions around sexual content and having a real interest in it. That is a red flag. Don't leave it hanging. Investigate a little bit more. Make yourself open to talking about this so that they can confide in you. So again, with dreams, they can be dreaming about sexual content and images, pay attention. So they could also start developing new and unusual fears about certain people, places, and things, and again tease this out. It's not unusual as you grow up, or children tell each other stories, or you watch something, or you play a game and suddenly you get a fear, or you have a bad dream. It can be normal. But when you start ticking off some of these symptoms, what I would do is be paying attention and assessing a little bit. So as a parent, you can do the same thing. Just be mindful, ask questions, make yourself available, keep an eye out. So something to be very concerned about is if they start having secrets with other adults or older children that they refuse to tell you about, or start talking about their new adult friend or much older friend. This is something you really do need to investigate, especially if it's an older relative, a step-parent, an uncle, something like that. If there's secrets involved or something going on, or they don't want to see this person, they have a real reaction about going to their place, being left overnight there, don't leave it. Pay attention. So another one, which I would say is a dead giveaway, but sometimes it's not, is if they start having money and gifts and toys and things that you don't know where this has come from. Do not accept that. When you're doing safety when they're little, you don't accept gifts from strangers. So you want to be mindful about what they're bringing home, where things are, keep in control of what they've got and what they don't have. Money also, that's something, they get their pocket money if that's what you do. They don't just get money from other people. Oh, Uncle Bob gave me this. Why? Always ask why. It's not for Uncle Bob to do that. So you need to investigate. So, and one thing that is very prominent here is sexualized behavior. Are they touching themselves? Are they pulling down pants? Are they touching you in certain ways? So this is the schools are very on the ball with this a lot of the time. And this is the kind of thing that we would report if we're reporting to child protection. Sexualized behavior is very high on that list. And to separate children and adolescents, I'll just quickly run through with children. There can be a lot of regression, such as bedwetting and thumb sucking. So when an older child starts acting younger than they are. You can also have new, like I said before, those new words for genitals. In adolescence, that can be normal because when you start hitting puberty, that's what you think about, and you're learning all manner of things that your parents probably wouldn't even know about. But when it's little children, be concerned. Another thing that's a huge red flag as a professional is when they struggle to get dressed in front of other people. Little kids don't usually have body image issues unless it's learned, unless something's going on. So if they don't want to undress in front of someone or you, or something's going on, or they want to go under the bed to dress, or they really covering themselves and they feel vulnerable about getting naked in front of you or trusted adults, that is a warning sign. Something's going on. It shouldn't be left. Again, the play, looking at how they're playing with their toys, and if they bedwetting a lot and soiling their pants or soiling the bed, which is defecating or having a poo in their bed, especially if they're a bit older. When they're toilet training, this can be very normal. But if they're already trained and suddenly, again, that's regression, they're going back to that, you need to pay attention. Now, the behaviors in adolescence come out as problem children behaviors. And this is where I feel very passionate about blaming the victim, because that's what usually happens, because it comes out in the form of self-harm, of real anger and rage and those mood swings. It comes out in the form of promiscuity, lots of different men, running away from home, sneaking out the house, just no regard for rules, and the acting out things, which can be typical teens, but this is really pronounced behavior. Self-harm is often linked with sexual abuse. Maybe it's inadequate hygiene, they're not bathing enough. Now, young teenage boys can get like this. Granted, again, you need to look at the context. You need to not leave that if your child's not bathing for days on end, or they're not brushing their teeth, or they, not wanting to wear clean clothes, not caring. That's something to investigate. A huge thing is that anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, wanting, maybe trying to complete suicide, having attempts, or just what they're writing, what they're drawing, getting really dark, getting really withdrawn, really angry with the world. Often something's going on. Even in normal teenage behavior, I would say something's going on. So that's something you really do need to involve a professional, either for yourself so you get support in how to help, through the school, chat to people. Don't ever leave this. So a substance abuse I've got on my list as well. That kind of thing, escapism, avoiding those horrible feelings, that shame, those emotions that are coming up. These are all ways to cope with emotions that are so overwhelming and so difficult to process, and they haven't been processed. They have become a trauma. So that they keep coming up. They'll be triggered in things. And often there's a lot of anger towards the parent that they feel should be protecting them. So know your signs and symptoms. The physical signs and symptoms are very rare, in fact, but they can, especially in younger children, discoloration, bleeding in the genitals, such as the anus, the genitals, or the mouth, discharges, anything funny smells, things like that coming from there, or really painful urination and bowel movements, and again, bedwetting and soiling the pants and things like that. So this is a very serious topic, and it's really good for all parents to be informed, or teachers or carers. Either you see it in your child or you see it in something else. If you do see something like that and you're concerned, take steps immediately. Create that safety plan. Get people involved. Protect your child. Or if it's somebody else's child and you are worried, make that call. Report it. Department of Human Services and Child Protection take sexual abuse, especially in Victoria and Australia and the UK and the US, I know, very, very seriously. So there are routes that you can take. There's advice. There are different organizations you can call. Don't put your head in the sand. This is far too common and far too huge an issue for us to turn our backs on it. If it's not your child, it might be someone else's. So I hope that's been helpful. Take care. Ask questions if you need to. Bye.